Hi everyone, it's Becky here. So this is my current watercolor sketchbook and I've been working on it for about a month now, sketching pretty much every day. So I draw with an ink pen and then paint watercolors on top from real life observations. So on an average day, I spend about 30 minutes up to 1 hour sitting down in the kitchen or standing by my windows to capture the sunset skies and to draw the simple everyday objects. So nothing is too simple or boring. Everything can be interesting to be studied. And today I'm gonna finish filling up this page spread. Yesterday I sketched the beautiful sunset sky outside the window. And right now I have this bag of bread from grocery shopping. So before we start drawing something, we have to understand what we're drawing in three-dimensional forms. So this bag of bread, like pretty much every other bread, is roughly a prism shape. So all the corners are nice and round and with very soft round bends. So as you can see, all of these labels are following the three-dimensional curve or bend of the prism, the round prism. And now just drawing these package details like that maple leaf and other little labels and words. And now I'm starting to draw the slices of bread inside. All of them are very curvy, but all of these curves look different. And yeah, most of the bread slices are being covered by the package labels. And now I'm just keep drawing these package details like the maple leaves and the words. So I think it's pretty important to understand the surface curve of this bag of bread so you know that the words are actually bending on the surface. They're not straight. A lot of lines, I think pretty much every lines on here, they're not perfectly straight, all following the surface curve. And now I'm just drawing this really nice tail. It's just a piece of plastic over here, but I think it's very interesting with a lot of folds and wrinkles, like a fish tail. Yeah, just adding some other little wrinkles and shines of the plastic and the words on the package. So now I just switched to another pen. So this is another Etchr felt tip pen. So I just used up all of the ink in it, but I don't want to throw it away because the soft leftover ink can add a really nice hatching lines because I don't want the hatching lines to be so competitive with the outlines. Yeah, and that's it. And now I'm ready to paint watercolors. So as always, I like to wet the surface areas with clear water. And the first layer is always the lightest tone. It's a mix of orange and a bit of medium yellow. And keep it very watery. So when painting watercolors, we don't need to add the color we see as it is right away. It's good to paint in layers to create a sense of depth and interest. Yeah, so that's the first layer for the bread. Now I'm ready to mix the color for the second layer. So burnt sienna with a bit of orange. Wet on wet. As you can see, I'm not covering every single space of the first layer because I want the first layer to show through to get that sense of depth. I'm also controlling the amount of water in this paint mixture. So every brushstroke is actually a different intensity of orange-brown. Okay, and now I'm just going to let the bread part to dry while I paint the label part. I see some sky blue or cerulean blue. So cobalt blue, yeah. These blues are very nice contrasting colors with the yellows of the bread. Warm and cold colors just make the piece of artwork more powerful. And I also mix a bit of purple into the blue to get this violet color. So there's an interesting concept that I want to share with you, is that even though one patch of an object has a blue color, it's never exactly the same color throughout the whole area. Some parts of it, is slightly darker. Some parts is a bit lighter because the surface is uneven and the lighting comes from multiple directions. So this is a bit complex. Okay, so now I'm just adding these red colors for the maple leaves on the labels. I really like these vibrant reds because it really makes the package pop up even more. And now I'm mixing the third layer for the bread slices, an even darker brown tone, by mixing burnt sienna with a little bit blue into it. The more blue we mix into brown, the darker the brown tone is. And again, these brown tones look slightly different from one another because I mix in more or less water into it. This is the way that we control the tone, even though we're using the same color, by adding more or less water. Just adding these stripes. And these bread slices are coming to life with just 3 layers of colors. And now I'm just going to finish up the exterior package details and the plastic. So just use the mix of ultramarine blue, purple, and a little bit of green to get this grayish color for transparent plastic. And also by mixing in more or less water to control the intensity of the shades. And also in using pretty thin brush strokes to get those, thinner streaks. And you can always do another layer to give more contrast to the plastic. The key is to just mix in less water compared to the previous layer and more paint pigment. So it's just a very simple mix of blue and purple. And as you can see, I'm being pretty careful leaving those bright highlight streaks because plastics are shiny, right? And also for here, leaving the bright streaks around the edge, around the bend. Very important little details. Darker tone around the bottom. And on this side too, it's away from the big window. Just another layer to give it more density here. Yeah, and the good piece of artwork, needs some more layers to be worked on. And just another layer on the maple leaves to add a sense of shade by using leftover green. Alright, finally I think I'm ready to add the shadow. So just wetted the area with clear water first, and then mix ultramarine blue with pink purple. First layer, just keep it pretty light, because plastic packages, they don't have very solid dark shadows. And second layer, even darker around the very edges. I think the shadow just comes from the bread slices. And just a bit of gentle retouches over there. Darker around the bottom, even more. And just let the colors blend together by themselves. Some little final polish for the bread here and there, even darker tone there. And that's it. And the next thing I'm going to sketch is this can of corned beef made in Brazil. Very interesting colors. So again, when we're drawing an object, it's very important to understand its 3-dimension form first. So this is another kind of prism shape. The top is a long rectangle. The side is actually tilting a little bit sideways, and the bottom is round curve. Just adding the rim over there on the bottom. Now starting to draw the inner rim for the top part, and there's a little stamp over there in the middle. And the end of the paper wrapping, just using very simple squiggly lines to show the tiny little printings on the side, the oval with the name of the brand inside. Just keep drawing the shapes that I see on the package. And the name of the product. So again, I'm just drawing the largest words, defining what the thing is. For other smaller words on it, I'm just using very simple squiggly lines to give you the idea of the printing. And now just drawing the images of the slices of meat right here. And using little broken lines to further give 3-dimension. And I decided to give it a little platform to stand on. Now I'm ready to paint watercolors again. So as always, just wetting the whole area with clear water. So I just grabbed some yellow ochre for the metal part of the can. This has this yellowish tone. And some red mixed with orange for the package color here. Mixing some more or less red to control the tone. And even though these colors are pretty similar, every brush stroke is actually creating a slightly different tone, because this is how nature works. A light is never, completely perfectly even on a surface. And just, very loosely adding these colors. And it has a darker tone, so I mix a bit of a leftover blue purple into the orange to paint the side on the left hand side. And same for the color over here. So as I mentioned before, these colors are not flat, they're actually a bit uneven, because light actually comes from multiple directions in the home. Okay, now I'm just adding the shade color for the yellow metal on top with the leftover purple blue, wet on wet, and for the ring on the bottom too. Just add some grays for the white parts. And because the color intensity of watercolors tend to fade away a bit after it dries, that's why sometimes we need to paint another layer on top to intensify. Now I just added a stronger shade color for the left side of the can, because most of the lights come from the right side. And just add some more stronger greens on the image. The greens are really nice contrasting colors with a warm orange and reds. And finally painting the shadow very quickly, just using the leftover colors. Ultramarine blue mixed with purple. A bit of shade around the ring area of the box. Darker around the bottom, around the edge. And that's it. And the next set of things I'm going to sketch is a new jar of salsa from grocery shopping and a box of spaghettini. Now let's see how I dealt with the overlapping of two things. So as always, when there's overlapping, I like to draw the object that's not being covered by anything. Of course, pretty obviously, this jar. So I started with the lid of the jar, which is an oval shape with many layers. It's actually a very small, flat cylinder form. And after drawing the lid, I'm connecting the shoulder part of the jar. The left side, the bottom, is nice and round for all cylinders, and the right side of the jar. And we don't have to be perfect. If sometimes distortions happens, and we just let go and embrace it. And the outline of the box behind is a prism shape It looks shorter because it's looked from the pretty extreme side view. And I like the way that the corner on the right is cut off by the page. It's very natural this way. We don't have to fit every part, exactly into the page. And now I just added the label of the salsa and the inside line of the paste and the bits of textures inside. Now I'm starting to draw the smaller shapes and details on the label. And as I mentioned before, all of those words and the shapes should kind of follow the surface curve of the cylinder. They're not just flat on there. And keep drawing some more shapes and quickly using scribbly lines to show the little writings on the package, big and small shapes and letters, image of a plate of pasta over here. And that's it, pretty much it for the line work. Now I'm just using my dried up pen to add some hatching lines to suggest shade. The left side of everything is in darker shade because the light comes from the right side. Yeah, and that's it. Now I'm ready to paint watercolors again. And because the day is getting dark very soon, so I kind of omitted the first part of just wetting everything with clear water. So I just started with the brightest colors, the medium yellow for the lid. As you can see, I left a tiny little bits of white for the highlights, and orange, and wet on wet some red with the orange for the package label over here. And now I'm just adding the first layer for the sauce. It's a mix of burnt sienna and red orange. I'm leaving tiny little bits of highlights for the glass jar around the top area. And just painting these smaller details very loosely, the chips and the bowl of salsa on the package. I think I used yellow ochre mixed with a bit of orange. And same for the package detail on the pasta box too. Just painting in a very relaxing way. We don't have to do it like doing a coloring book. We don't have to make it look exactly like it is in real life. And now I just mixed a dark blue tone with purple and trying to match what I see of the package. And here, this part is more of cobalt blue color. And just adding a bit of dark red over here and orange and yellow. It really makes this pack of pasta pops because there used to be too much blue all over the package. And now I'm mixing a darker tone for the second layer of the salsa. So it's a mix of burnt sienna, red magenta, and a bit of ultramarine blue to get this dark tone, and also less water, more paint pigment, just so we have a more solid layer right here. Again, leaving the highlights around the top part of the glass jar. Just painting the bottom of the glass with leftover color. And mixing in some more ultramarine blue to make this red-purple tone even darker. This layer is more about the shade color of the salsa sauce. And now just using some leftover blue to paint the left side of the label. Just a quick light wash on top of the yellows because the light comes from the right. The left side is in shade. And same for the lid too. The left side I want a bit of bluish shade tone here. And again, just leaving those little spots of highlight on the lid. And just another quick layer of more intense blues for the package of the pasta, because as I mentioned before, the color of watercolors tend to fade away a bit as it dries, so it's good to add another new layer And finally, it's time to paint the shadows, but actually I want to paint the platform first with brown, and then the mix of brown and blue for the shadows, wet on wet. And some red orange reflecting from the salsa onto the shadows. And that's pretty much it. Just adding some final little polish for the salsa inside the jar using tiny little brush strokes. And that's it. That's my finished spread. Just adding the last bit of the shadow of the salsa jar landing on the side of the pasta box there. And that's it. And here's the look of my finished art journal spread. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you liked my video, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. I up this channel 2 to 3 times a week. Thank you and have a great day. And just a quick announcement here at the end is that I'll be hosting Unit 2, the second round of beginners drawing and painting classes starting next week, February the 19th, every Saturday for 5 weeks. I will show you the basics of how to draw cylinder objects by using graphite pencil, colored pencils, and painting watercolors. And if you want to establish a stronger fundamentals in drawing and painting, you can join the class. And the link is down there in the description part of this video.